Today on Upfront, tough choices for lawmakers deciding how to spend taxpayer money. Will they scale back the governor's proposed cuts to education? Could new revenue numbers change the outlook? We get insight from the leaders of the state Senate, Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald and Minority Leader Jennifer Schilling. Then, the Milwaukee Bucks plans for a new arena. How will they pay for it? And can they really get it done by 2017? It's my conversation with Bucks President Peter Feigin.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. Lawmakers working on the next state budget are getting down to the nitty-gritty now, and some hard choices are about to be made. Whether it's the level of funding for public schools, cuts to the UW system, or support for a new arena in downtown Milwaukee, these decisions and more will be made in the coming weeks. We're talking about it now in an extended interview with the leaders of the state Senate, Republican Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald of Juneau and Democratic Minority Leader Jennifer Schilling of La Crosse. Thanks to both of you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Senator Fitzgerald, I want to begin with you because you folks essentially control what happens in the legislature. And one of the big issues right now is the governor's proposed $127 million cut in funding for public education, K through 12, in the first year of the budget.
Right.
Is that cut going to be in the budget at the end of the day?
I'm anticipating we're going to have more revenue available than the governor did in February. And if that's the case in early May, I think there's a real commitment to make sure that K-12 is fully funded in that first year.
No cuts.
No cuts. And if there is even a little bit more revenue than anticipated, you may see some type of increase in that second year related to the per pupil amount. So I think there's a real commitment.
Senator Schilling, Democrats must like that news. That's something you want to hear, correct?
We certainly do. We feel very strongly that we need to restore those cuts to public education. In Wisconsin, our strength is our people, and we need to be investing in our education system. We need to make sure that we have strong schools, regardless if you live in a small school district, an urban school district, or a suburban school district. We want to make sure that there's a lot on the plate of educators these days. We want to make sure that the schools, that they have the necessary resources that they need to make sure that we have quality education in this state.
But you are not happy about the idea of lifting the cap on enrollment for voucher schools in Wisconsin, correct?
So the majority of students attend public schools in this state. We have 870,000 students attend a charter or a public school. And we certainly need to make sure that we have that conversation, that we are supporting that school system in our state, the public school system, because that is where traditionally the majority of students go in this state.
But is that going to remain in the budget, the expansion of the voucher program?
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, I always remind people it's a small percentage of students statewide, but it's a great success story for Wisconsin, and there's a huge investment, I think, that's been made by the Republican legislature to make sure that choice continues to be successful, and that means not only the statewide expansion, but I think the funding levels, which will be a little bit higher than what Governor Walker put in place. Outstate
Republicans are okay with the expansion of the voucher program because they do hear from constituents out there about their public schools.
Yeah, and then some schools have chosen to participate and actually apply to DPI, and it doesn't mean that the whole school changes. I think that's kind of a misnomer. You could have 1 or 2 seats within a school. So, again, it's a very small percentage of students statewide, but I think it's an option for low-income parents that should be available.
Senator Schilling, what do you do about the proposed cuts to the UW? The governor in his budget talked about giving the UW greater autonomy, greater flexibility, but in return, $300 million in cuts. What, if anything, can you do because you don't have control of either house of the legislature?
Well, certainly as we had listening sessions around the state, we had the joint finance hearings, the university system was one that many people stepped up and said that $300 million is too deep. And as you look at those schools or the campuses around the state, if it's the 2-year, the 4-year, the extension that is in every county, we have a tremendous pride with our UW system. We need to make sure that it continues to have that reputation of research, development, academic excellence, and we need to make sure that we can mitigate those cuts. I would like I wish we didn't have to talk about those cuts. And honestly, President Cross came forward with a $93 million ask of the budget for talent development, and then he finds a $300 million cut to the system. I think working with President Cross and making sure that we can do this, look at avenues to help us bolster our university system is very important.
Give us a sense, Senator Fitzgerald, what might happen to the UW. I think there's some feeling amongst people in the system that maybe they're getting the ear of lawmakers, maybe they're getting the ear of some of your fellow Republicans, and that some of these cuts will be rolled back. Is that likely to happen?
It depends on revenue, and it depends on the priorities that are set by the Finance Committee and the full legislature. I think if K-12 is certainly addressed, and then secondly, transportation is something that
transportation
emerges.
is the second priority.
I believe that's probably true. And then UW's system, because of what we experienced last biennium, with there being surpluses in relationship to many of the campuses, I don't know that there's the same sense of urgency. And now that the regents are considering a tuition increase for graduate students and out-of-state students, I think that changes the dynamics as well. So, you know, we'll see where the Finance Committee goes with all that.
You said that at an event that the two of you were at with me that you did not feel the UW's quality of education would be damaged by these cuts. Is that correct?
I do. I believe that.
You don't feel they'd be damaged?
No, I think that the chancellors around the state are kind of dealing individually with what they think the impact will be. But I think there's an overall commitment to excellence, and I think that'll stay in place.
Senator Schilling, will it be damaged?
I'm concerned that it has already been problematic, that we have seen professors who are looking at positions within the system and being offered a position, and they are concerned about the direction that the system is taking. So even just discussing and having $300 million on the table, that has already impacted, I think, the excellence in education with our system. Think about students who will have to go an extra semester, an extra year, because they can't get those classes that are available. Some campuses are looking at a buyout of 300+ staff on their campus and faculty. That certainly is going to impact that education experience on that campus. So I think the mere fact that we are talking about a $300 million cut, that has already impacted the education at the system.
Anything you want to add to that? I've got just a couple seconds here.
I'll just say that I know individual chancellors have come up with their own plans to deal with the changes, and I think that's kind of the appropriate level for that discussion to happen. So I think we'll be fine in the end.
We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Senators Schilling and Fitzgerald. We'll include talking about what level of state help might be coming for a new arena in downtown Milwaukee. That's when Up Front continues.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.